Jake Morrison wiped the grease from his hands and looked at the broken ship engine in front of him. He had been working on it for 3 hours straight. The station around him buzzed with activity as traders and miners moved through the docking bay. Kepler 9 was a small frontier station far from Earth, but it felt like home to Jake. He had lived here for 7 years now. Every day brought new machines to fix and new problems to solve. Jake was good at his job. People said he could fix anything. Word of his skills had spread across 3 sectors of space. Ships came from distant planets just to have him look at their engines. Jake stood up and stretched his back. His small workshop was cluttered with tools and spare parts. Some were human-made, others came from alien worlds. He had learned to work with all of them. The smell of oil and metal filled the air. A shadow fell across his workbench. Jake turned to see a tall creature standing in his doorway. The being was unlike anything he had seen before. It had a body like an insect, with long, thin limbs and a hard shell that shimmered green and blue. Its eyes were compound, reflecting light in 1,000 directions. "Are you Jake Morrison?" the creature asked. Its voice came out in clicks and whistles, but Jake's translator turned it into clear English. "That's me," Jake said. "What can I do for you?" "My name is Chirix. I am a diplomat from the Andromedan Empire. I bring a message from King Vexthor himself." Jake raised his eyebrows. He had heard of King Vexthor. Everyone in this part of space had. The king ruled over dozens of planets and commanded fleets of warships. Why would someone that powerful care about a simple mechanic? "I think you have the wrong person," Jake said. Chirix clicked his mandibles together. "No mistake. The king has heard of your reputation. He needs your help with a problem that no one else can solve." Jake felt suspicious. Important people did not usually seek out mechanics from frontier stations. There were thousands of skilled workers on the core worlds. Better equipped, better trained. "What kind of problem?" Jake asked. "A critical piece of machinery is broken down in the royal palace. The king's own technicians cannot fix it. He specifically requests you, and why me? Because you understand both human and alien technology. You can bridge the gap between different systems. This machine is unique. It requires special knowledge." Jake crossed his arms. "I'm pretty busy here. I have 12 ships waiting for repairs." Chirix moved closer. His insect legs made soft clicking sounds on the metal floor. "The king is prepared to pay you 100,000 credits. Jake's mouth went dry. 100,000 credits. That was more money than he had made in 5 years. With that much, he could buy his own station. He could expand his business. He could finally stop living hand to mouth. "That's a lot of money," Jake said slowly. "The king values quality work. He is willing to pay for the best." Jake thought about it. Something felt wrong. Kings did not just throw money at random mechanics. But then again, maybe the machine really was that important. Maybe this was his chance to finally get ahead. "Where is this palace?" Jake asked. "Nexara Prime. 3 days' journey from here. A shuttle is waiting to take you." "I need to think about it." Chirix's compound eyes seemed to study him. "Of course. But the king hopes for an answer soon. The matter is urgent." After the diplomat left, Jake walked to Danny's bar. Danny Cooper was his oldest friend on the station. They had met when Jake first arrived, both young and looking for work. Now Danny ran the most popular drinking spot on Kepler 9. The bar was crowded with spacers and miners. The air smelled of alcohol and sweat. Danny stood behind the counter, pouring drinks and laughing with customers. When he saw Jake, he waved him over. "You look like someone just offered you 1,000,000 credits," Danny said. "Close. 100,000. Danny's smile faded. "For what?" "Fixing a machine for King Vexthor." The noise in the bar seemed to drop. Several people turned to look at Jake. Danny leaned closer and lowered his voice. "Are you serious?" "King Vexthor?" "That's what the diplomat said." "Jake, listen to me. I've heard stories about that king. Bad stories. He's cruel.
He uses people and throws them away.
He conquered 6 planets in the last decade alone." "Maybe those are just rumors," Jake said. "Powerful people always have enemies spreading lies. Or maybe the rumors are true. Why would he need you specifically? There are better mechanics on the core worlds." The diplomat said the machine is special. It needs someone who knows both human and alien tech. Danny shook his head. "I don't like it. Something smells wrong." 100,000 credits, Danny. Think about what I could do with that money." "I am thinking about it. I'm also thinking about why a king would pay that much for a simple repair job." Jake ordered a drink. He knew Danny was probably right. His friend had good instincts about people, but the money was too tempting. Jake was tired of scraping by, tired of living in a tiny room above his workshop, tired of eating cheap food and wearing old clothes. "I'm going to take the job," Jake said. Danny sighed. "Then at least be careful. Don't trust anything that King says. And keep your communicator on. If something goes wrong, call me immediately. Nothing will go wrong. It's just a repair job." Famous last words, Danny muttered. The next morning, Jake packed his tools and supplies. The golden shuttle that Chirix had mentioned waited in the docking bay. It was beautiful, covered in precious metals and intricate designs. Guards stood at the entrance, their weapons clearly visible. Jake climbed aboard. The interior was even more impressive than the outside. Soft seats, expensive materials, technology he had never seen before. He felt out of place in his work clothes and dirty boots. The journey took 3 days as promised. Jake spent the time reviewing everything he knew about Andromedan technology. He studied diagrams and technical manuals. If he was going to earn that money, he needed to do the job right. When they arrived at Nixara Prime, Jake pressed his face against the window. The planet below was stunning. Blue oceans, green continents, cities that sparkled like jewels. The royal palace sat on an island surrounded by water. It was made of crystal that caught the light and threw rainbows across the sky. The shuttle landed on a platform near the palace entrance. Chirix met him there along with 2 guards. "The king is eager to meet you," the diplomat said. They walked through halls decorated with art from 100 worlds. Jake saw paintings, sculptures, and objects he could not even name. Every surface gleamed with polish. Servants moved silently through the corridors, their eyes downcast. Finally, they entered a throne room. It was massive, with a ceiling so high Jake could barely see it. At the far end sat King Vexthor himself. The king was huge, easily 3 meters tall. His body was covered in silver scales that reflected the light. His head was reptilian with a long snout and sharp teeth. But his eyes were the worst part. They were intelligent and cold, studying Jake like he was an insect under glass. "So this is the famous human mechanic," the king said. His voice was deep and smooth. "Welcome to my palace, Jake Morrison." Jake tried to keep his voice steady. "Thank you for the invitation, Your Majesty. I have heard remarkable things about your skills. They say you can repair anything. I do my best." "Good, because I have a job that requires the very best." The king rose from his throne and walked down the steps. His claws clicked on the marble floor. "Follow me. I will show you what needs to be fixed." They walked through more corridors until they reached a large chamber. In the center sat a spacecraft engine, sleek and dark. Jake could see immediately that it was sophisticated technology, far beyond what most civilizations could build. "This engine powers my personal ship," the king explained. "It has stopped working. My technicians cannot determine why." Jake walked around the engine, examining it from all angles. It was beautiful work, complex but elegant. He could already see several potential problems. "I can fix this," Jake said. "It will take a few days, but I can do it." "Excellent." The king's tongue flickered out, tasting the air. "But first I have a small favor to ask." Jake felt his stomach tighten. Here it comes, he thought. The real reason I'm here. King Vexthor walked to the corner of the chamber. There sat a large containment unit made of transparent material. Inside was an animal. Jake moved closer and felt his breath catch. It was a wolf, but not like any wolf he had seen in pictures from Earth. This one was pure white. Its fur had no marks or stains. Its eyes were red, bright like rubies. The creature looked weak, shaking as it stood. "This is a rare creature from Earth," the king said. "A gift from a human colony. But it has become sick. My doctors cannot help it. I want to save this animal. It would show goodwill between our peoples." Jake stared at the wolf. It looked back at him with those strange red eyes. Something about the situation felt wrong. Why would a king care about a sick animal? Why not just send it back to human space? "What do you want me to do?" Jake asked. "There's a medical facility on the outer rim. They specialize in Earth creatures. I need someone to transport this wolf there while I arrange for another mechanic to finish the engine work. Since you are human, the wolf might trust you more. It has been frightened by my alien staff. I'm a mechanic, not an animal doctor. I understand. But the journey is only 2 days. The wolf is contained safely. You simply need to deliver it to the facility. I will pay you an additional 50,000 credits." Jake spent the rest of that day preparing for the journey. The palace staff brought supplies to his guest room. Food, water, everything he might need. They were polite but distant. None of them would meet his eyes. That night, Jake could not sleep. He kept thinking about the wolf. About Danny's warnings, about how strange this whole situation felt. But he also thought about the money. About finally having a future instead of just surviving day to day. In the morning, palace workers loaded the containment unit onto his cargo ship. The Ranger's Hope was not fancy like the Golden Shuttle. It was old and worn, but Jake had rebuilt most of its systems himself. It was reliable. A young woman helped with the loading. Her name was Sophie Grant. She worked in the docking section of the palace. She had dark hair tied back and grease stains on her uniform. "You're the human mechanic everyone's talking about," she said. "That's me," Jake replied. Sophie glanced around to make sure no one was listening. "Be careful out there. Things are not always what they seem at this palace." "What do you mean?" "I can't say more. Just watch yourself." Before Jake could ask another question, a supervisor called Sophie away. She hurried off, leaving Jake with more questions than answers. Jake climbed into his ship and ran through the pre-flight checks. Everything looked normal. The containment unit sat securely in the cargo bay. Through the transparent walls, he could see the wolf lying down. It looked even weaker than yesterday. The Ranger's Hope lifted off from Nixara Prime. Jake set the coordinates for the medical facility the king had given him. The autopilot engaged. 3 days of travel time. He could use that time to rest and think. Once they were in open space, Jake went back to check on the wolf. The animal raised its head as he approached. Those red eyes followed his every movement. "Hey there," Jake said softly. "I know you're scared, but we're going to get you help." The wolf did not react. Jake noticed something odd. The creature's breathing seemed steady, strong, not like a sick animal at all. He moved closer to the containment unit. That's when he saw them. Scars. Thin lines under the white fur on the wolf's neck. They were too precise to be natural. Too neat. Someone had cut into this animal, operated on it. Jake's stomach turned cold. This was not just a sick wolf. Someone had done something to it. Modified it somehow, but why? He ran back to the cockpit and tried to contact the medical facility. The communication system crackled, but no signal went through. Jake checked the settings. Everything looked correct. He tried another frequency. Nothing. A bad feeling crept over him. Jake ran a full diagnostic on his ship's systems. The scan took 10 minutes. When the results appeared on his screen, his hand started shaking. Someone had installed a transmission blocker in his ship. It must have been placed there while he was at the palace. Every outgoing signal was being jammed. He could not call for help. Could not contact anyone. Jake stared at the screen. Why would someone block his communications? Unless they wanted him isolated. Unless they did not want him talking to anyone about what he was carrying. His mind raced through possibilities. None of them were good. He stood up and paced the small cockpit. "Think," he told himself. "Use your brain." What's really going on here? Jake returned to the cargo bay. He approached the containment unit carefully. The wolf watched him with those unblinking red eyes. Jake examined the unit more closely. It was more sophisticated than he had first realized. Multiple systems, life support, temperature control, and something else. There was a small panel on the side. Jake opened it with his tools. Inside were circuits and wires he did not recognize. But there was also a timer. A countdown clock. It showed 72 hours. No, wait. It showed 68 hours now. Time was passing. What happens when the timer reaches 0? Jake thought. He needed to know what he was really carrying. Jake pulled out his handheld scanner. It was a good one, military grade. He had bought it years ago from a smuggler. It could analyze almost anything. Jake scanned the containment unit. The first pass showed the wolf's vital signs. Heart rate, brain activity, body temperature. Everything looked normal. Healthy even. This animal was not sick. He ran a deeper scan. This one looked for biological threats, viruses, bacteria, toxins. The scanner beeped, then beeped again, then started beeping rapidly. Warning signs flashed across the small screen. Jake read them twice to make sure he understood. Biohazard detected. Weaponized pathogen. Threat level extreme. Target human DNA. Jake dropped the scanner. It clattered on the metal floor. His heart pounded in his chest. A weapon. The wolf was carrying a biological weapon, and it was designed to kill humans. He picked up the scanner with trembling hands and ran the test again. Same results. The pathogen was real. If it was released, it could kill thousands, maybe millions. Human immune systems would have no defense against it. Jake looked at the wolf. The animal stared back at him. It was not the wolf's fault. Someone had used it, turned it into a weapon. King Vexthor. It all made sense now. The generous payment, the urgent request, the sick animal story. It was all lies. Jake had been tricked, manipulated. The king wanted him to deliver a weapon to a human colony. Jake checked the coordinates the king had given him. He pulled up the star charts. His blood turned to ice. The destination was not a medical facility. It was New Portland, a colony world with 50,000 human residents, families, children, innocent people. The king's plan became clear. Jake would arrive at the colony. Something would go wrong. The pathogen would be released. Everyone would die. And Jake would be blamed. The reckless human mechanic who brought death to his own people. The Andromedan Empire would pretend to be shocked. They would avoid any blame. Jake tried to turn the ship around. He grabbed the controls and pulled. Nothing happened. The autopilot was locked. He typed in override commands. Access denied. The navigation system had been encrypted with military-grade security. He was trapped on a course toward New Portland, carrying a weapon that would murder 50,000 people, and he only had 67 hours to stop it. Jake wanted to scream, to break something, but panic would not help. He forced himself to breathe slowly, to think clearly. He was a mechanic. He solved problems. This was just another problem, a really terrible problem, but still something he could work through. First, he needed to understand the weapon better. Jake scanned the containment unit again. The pathogen was not inside the wolf itself. It was stored separately, a small vial hidden in the base of the unit. The virus was contained in a green liquid. When the timer reached 0, the vial would break open. The containment unit would release its contents into the cargo bay. From there, the virus would spread through the ship's air system. And when Jake landed on New Portland, he would carry the pathogen out with him. It would spread through the colony like wildfire. Jake looked at the timer again. 66 hours. He had to work fast. He went back to the cockpit and started recording a message. His confession. His warning. Everything he knew about King Vexthor's plan. If Jake could not stop this, at least people would know the truth. At least his name would not go down in history as a mass murderer. Jake recorded for 20 minutes. He explained everything in detail. Then he tried to send the message, but the transmission blocker stopped it. The message could not go out. He saved it to his personal data drive. Then he copied it to 3 more drives. One he hid in the engine room, one in his quarters, one in the emergency pod. If his ship was ever found, someone would discover the truth. Jake tried to send a direct burst transmission to Danny. Sometimes those could punch through jammers. But this blocker was too good. Nothing got through. He slammed his fist on the console, then took another deep breath. Getting angry would not help. He needed to focus. The autopilot was the main problem. If Jake could override it, he could change course. Fly away from New Portland. Find help somewhere else. He pulled up the navigation program and started digging through the code. The encryption was sophisticated. Layer upon layer of security. It would take days to crack it normally. But Jake had learned tricks over the years. He had worked on military ships, smuggler vessels. Pirates had taught him things. Not all of it legal, but useful. He started looking for backdoors, exploits, weaknesses. Every program had them. The programmers always left ways to access systems for maintenance. The trick was finding them. Hours passed. Jake's eyes burned from staring at the screen. His back ached from hunching over, but he kept working. Coffee kept him alert. Fear kept him motivated. He found a possible weakness in the code, a small gap in the security. Jake wrote a program to exploit it. He ran the program. Error message. He modified the code and tried again. Another error. He tried a third time. Access granted. Jake almost shouted with relief. He had broken through the first layer of encryption, but there were more layers underneath. This would take time. He worked through the second layer, then the third. The fourth was harder. The fifth even worse. But Jake was stubborn. He refused to give up. Finally, after 8 hours of constant work, he reached the core navigation controls. His fingers flew across the keyboard. He fed new coordinates into the system. Anywhere but New Portland. He chose a set of coordinates in empty space, far from any colonies. The ship began to turn. Jake felt the Ranger's hope changing direction. He had done it. He was no longer heading toward New Portland. Relief flooded through him. Jake leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. He had plasma bolts streaked past the Ranger's hope. They lit up space like shooting stars. One bolt grazed the ship's rear shields. The impact threw Jake forward against his restraints. Warning lights flashed across his console. Jake yanked the controls hard to the left. The ship rolled just as another volley of plasma fire passed through the space where he had been. The interceptors were good pilots, trained military professionals. Jake was just a mechanic who had learned to fly cargo ships. But Jake had one advantage. He was desperate. And desperate people did crazy things. The asteroid field loomed ahead. Huge rocks tumbling through space. Some were small as houses. Others were big as mountains. They spun and collided with each other, creating a deadly maze of stone and ice. "Come on," Jake muttered to his ship. Just a little further. Another plasma bolt hit his rear shields. The impact was harder this time. Jake's shield indicator dropped to 40%. One more hit like that and the shields would fail. Then the next shot would tear through his hull. The Ranger's hope entered the asteroid field. Immediately, Jake had to start dodging. A rock the size of a truck spun toward him. He dove under it. Another came from the right. He pulled up hard. The ship groaned with the stress. Behind him, the interceptors slowed down. They were being more careful now. The asteroid field was dangerous for them, too. Their ships were faster but less maneuverable. The tight spaces gave Jake a chance. Jake flew between two massive asteroids. The gap was barely wider than his ship. Metal scraped against rock. Sparks flew past his windows. But he made it through. The interceptors tried to follow. One made it. The other two had to find different routes. Jake had split them up. Now it was only one against one. He dove deeper into the field. Rocks rushed past on all sides. Jake's hands moved constantly on the controls. Left, right, up, down. There was no time to think, only react. A boulder suddenly appeared right in front of him. Jake jerked the controls. Too hard. The ship spun sideways. He clipped another rock with his wing. More warning lights. Hull breach in Section 3. Emergency seals engaged. The interceptor behind him fired again. The plasma bolt missed but hit a nearby asteroid. The rock exploded into fragments. Chunks of stone peppered Jake's ship. Small impacts, nothing critical. But they added up. Jake spotted a cluster of asteroids ahead. They were spinning around each other in a tight group. A gap existed in the center, barely big enough for his ship. It was suicide to try threading through there. Jake aimed for the gap. "This is really stupid," he said out loud. The Ranger's hope shot into the spinning cluster. Rocks whirled around him, above, below, every direction. Jake felt like he was inside a giant blender. His ship shook violently. More scrapes, more impacts, but he made it through. The interceptor behind him was not as lucky. Or maybe its pilot was not as crazy. The military ship tried to follow but could not match Jake's maneuver. It clipped an asteroid and went spinning off course. Jake saw it on his sensors, tumbling away. 2 interceptors left. Jake found a large asteroid with deep crevasses on its surface. He flew low, following the cracks in the rock. The other 2 interceptors circled above, trying to get a clear shot. But Jake stayed close to the asteroid's surface. They could not hit him without risking hitting the rock and damaging themselves. He used the time to check his systems, shields at 15%. Hull breaches in 3 sections. Life support running at 60% capacity. The ship was falling apart around him. In the cargo bay, the containment unit rattled with each impact. Jake prayed it would hold together. If the unit broke open now, the virus would be released inside his ship. He would be dead in hours. The timer on the unit now showed 58 hours. Time was still running out. Jake's communication system suddenly crackled. Not with a message from the interceptors. This was something else, a different frequency. Someone was trying to reach him despite the jammer. A woman's voice broke through the static. "Jake Morrison, this is Captain Lisa Hayes of the Earth Defense Vessel Horizon. We received your broadcast. Hold on. We're coming in!" Jake's heart leaped. His broadcast. The message he had tried to send. Somehow it had gotten through. Maybe a piece of it, maybe just enough. "This is Morrison," he shouted into his comm. "I've got 3 interceptors on me. And a biological weapon. You need to warn New Portland. Evacuate the colony. We understand. Help is on the way. Keep yourself alive." On his sensors, Jake saw a new ship entering the system. It was big. A military cruiser. Human design. The Horizon. Relief washed over him, but the 2 interceptors saw it too. They broke off from chasing Jake and turned toward the new threat. The Horizon was a powerful ship, but 2 against 1 was not good odds. Captain Hayes knew what she was doing, though. The Horizon opened fire immediately. Its railguns sent solid projectiles screaming through space at incredible speed. 1 interceptor had to dodge. The other returned fire with missiles. Jake used the distraction to put more distance between himself and the fight. He needed to stop moving so frantically. Needed to think. To figure out his next move, he found a hollowed-out asteroid, a cave in the rock big enough for his ship. Jake carefully maneuvered inside. The opening was tight, but he made it. Now he was hidden from sensors. At least for a while. Jake sat in the darkness of the cave and tried to catch his breath. His hands were shaking from adrenaline. His clothes were soaked with sweat. But he was alive. That was something. He turned his attention back to the containment unit. The real problem. The weapon that could kill 50,000 people. Jake pulled up the scan data on his handheld device. The vial of virus was stored in a compartment at the base of the unit, surrounded by protective shielding. The timer mechanism would break the vial when it reached 0. Then the contents would be released. Jake studied the design carefully. He was a mechanic. He understood how things were put together, which meant he could figure out how to take them apart. He needed to disable the timer, or better yet, remove the vial completely. If he could get the virus out safely, he could store it in a secure container. Then even if the unit opened, nothing dangerous would be released. But it was risky. One wrong move and he could break the vial himself. He would be dead before he could call for help. Jake looked at the wolf through the cargo bay camera. The animal was sitting up now, watching the camera. Those red eyes seemed to look right at him. It was strange. The wolf looked alert, aware, not at all like a sick animal or a mindless weapon. "I'm going to get us out of this," Jake said to the camera. "Both of us." He gathered his tools and made his way to the cargo bay. The ship was quiet now except for the hum of life support. Outside, the battle continued. Jake could hear distant impacts through the hull. Plasma fire explosions. But inside his hidden cave, everything was still. Jake approached the containment unit slowly. He could see his reflection in the transparent walls. He looked terrible, tired, scared, but determined. The wolf watched him approach. It did not seem afraid, just curious. Waiting. Jake knelt beside the unit and opened the access panel again. The timer showed 57 hours and 12 minutes. The circuits inside were complex. Alien technology mixed with human components. Someone had designed this very carefully. He started tracing wires, following circuits, looking for the mechanism that would break the vial. It took him 20 minutes to map out the entire system in his mind. Then he saw it. A small explosive charge. When the timer hit 0, the charge would detonate. Not enough to damage the unit, just enough to shatter the vial inside. If he could disconnect the explosive, the timer would be useless. The vial would stay intact. Jake pulled out his smallest tools. His hands needed to be steady. One slip could trigger the explosive. He took a deep breath and started working. The first wire came loose easily. The second was harder. It was tucked behind other components. Jake had to twist his hand at an awkward angle to reach it. His fingers cramped. But he got it. 3 more wires to go. Outside, the sounds of battle grew louder. Someone was getting closer to his position. Jake ignored it. He had to focus. Wire 3, wire 4. Just one more. The last wire was the trickiest. It was connected to a pressure sensor. If Jake pulled it wrong, the sensor would detect the change and trigger the explosive anyway. He needed to keep constant pressure on the sensor while disconnecting the wire. Jake used his left hand to press down on the sensor. With his right hand, he carefully cut the wire. The tool slipped. For one horrible second, he thought he had failed. But the wire came free cleanly. No explosion. No alarm. The timer was still counting down, but it no longer mattered. The explosive was disabled. Now for the vial itself. Jake located the compartment that held it. It was sealed with a magnetic lock. He used a bypass tool to override the lock. The compartment opened with a soft hiss. Inside was a small vial no bigger than his thumb. It was filled with green liquid that seemed to glow slightly. Such a small thing, but it contained enough death to wipe out an entire colony. Jake pulled out a reinforced containment box from his emergency supplies. It was designed to hold hazardous materials. He carefully lifted the vial and placed it inside the box. The box sealed automatically. Red warning lights appeared on its surface. Biohazard level 5. Jake let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. The horizon moved alongside the Ranger's Hope. Both ships floated in the quiet space where the battle had been. Debris drifted past them. Pieces of asteroids broken by weapons fire, but the interceptors were gone. Fled into deep space. Captain Lisa Hayes contacted Jake again. Her voice was calm but curious. "Morrison, bring your ship to our docking bay. We need to secure that biological weapon. And I want to meet the man who just survived 3 military interceptors in a cargo hauler." Jake guided his damaged ship toward the horizon. The military cruiser was impressive up close. Clean lines, heavy armor, weapons everywhere. A real warship. His beat-up cargo ship looked like a toy next to it. The docking bay opened. Jake flew inside carefully. His ship was barely holding together. One wrong move and something might fall off. He sat down gently on the landing pad. The bay doors closed behind him. Through his window, Jake saw armed soldiers taking positions around his ship. They wore full combat gear, weapons ready. They were not taking chances with a bioweapon on board. A woman in a captain's uniform walked toward his ship. She was tall with short dark hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Captain Hayes. She looked like someone who had seen combat, who knew how to handle dangerous situations. Jake opened his airlock and climbed down. His legs were shaky. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving him exhausted. He had been running on fear and coffee for hours. "Captain Hayes," he said. "Thanks for the rescue." She studied him for a moment. "You're either very brave or very stupid. I haven't decided which. Probably both. Show me the weapon." Jake led her and 2 soldiers to his cargo bay. They all wore protective suits now, just in case. Jake showed them the reinforced box where he had stored the vial. One of the soldiers scanned it with specialized equipment. Confirmed. Biohazard level 5. Weaponized pathogen. Targets human DNA specifically. Captain Hayes looked at Jake with new respect. "You disarmed this yourself? While being chased by interceptors?" "I'm a mechanic. I fix things. Or in this case, break things that need to be broken. We'll take this to our secure lab. It needs to be analyzed. And then destroyed." She paused. "You said in your message that King Vexthor gave you this weapon. That he tricked you." "Yes, he wanted me to deliver it to New Portland. Make it look like an accident. Kill 50,000 people and blame me. We received part of your transmission. Enough to understand the situation. But tell me everything." Jake explained the whole story. The job offer, the generous payment, the sick wolf, how he discovered the truth. Captain Hayes listened without interrupting. Her expression grew darker with each detail. "This is an act of war," she said finally. "King Vexthor tried to use biological weapons against a human colony. The Galactic Council needs to know. Will they believe us? He's a king. I'm just a mechanic. You have the weapon. You have your recording. And you have me as a witness. That's enough." She looked past Jake at the containment unit. "What about the wolf?" Jake turned to look at the animal. It sat calmly in the unit watching them. Those red eyes were focused, intelligent. "I don't know what the wolf is," Jake admitted. "King Vexthor said it came from a human colony. But it's not normal. It has surgical scars, and somehow it scared off those interceptors. Surgical scars? Here." Jake pointed to the wolf's neck through the transparent wall. "Someone modified this animal. I think it's more than just a wolf." One of the soldiers moved closer to examine the animal. The wolf watched him but did not seem aggressive. Just alert Captain Hayes made a decision. "We'll take the wolf too. Our medical team can examine it safely, figure out what we're dealing with." They carefully moved the containment unit to the Horizon's secure medical bay. The wolf remained calm during the transfer. It seemed to understand that these people were trying to help. Jake followed along. He felt responsible for the creature somehow. It had been used as part of a terrible plan, just like Jake had been used. They were both victims of King Vexthor's scheme. In the medical bay, a doctor named Pete Harris began examining the wolf. He was older, with gray hair and gentle hands, the kind of person who genuinely cared about animals. "Remarkable," Dr. Harris said as he studied the scan results. "This animal has been heavily modified. Neural implants, enhanced muscle structure, altered vocal cords. Someone put a lot of work into this creature." "What kind of modifications?" Captain Hayes asked. "The neural implants suggest increased intelligence, far beyond normal wolf cognition. The vocal modifications allow it to produce sounds outside the normal range, including frequencies that affect certain technologies. That's why the interceptors ran," Jake realized. The wolf produced a sound that triggered something in their systems. Possibly. Or maybe it triggered something in the pilots themselves. Some species are sensitive to specific frequencies. It could have caused pain or fear responses. Captain Hayes crossed her arms. "So we have a weaponized animal with the ability to disable ships. And King Vexthor had it. The question is, where did he get it?" Dr. Harris pulled up more data. According to the genetic markers, this wolf was created by human scientists. The work is extremely advanced, probably from one of our research colonies. "Which colony?" Jake asked. "I'm checking the database now." Dr. Harris typed rapidly on his console. "Here. The genetic signature matches work done at Research Station 12. Located in the frontier sector. The station went silent 8 months ago. All communication stopped." Captain Hayes and Jake exchanged looks. They both understood what that meant. "King Vexthor destroyed the colony," Jake said. "That's where he got the wolf. He killed everyone and took their research." "It fits his pattern," Captain Hayes agreed. "He's conquered 6 planets in the last decade. A small research station would be an easy target, especially if they had valuable technology." Jake felt anger rising in his chest. How many people had died at that research station? Scientists, engineers, maybe families, all killed so a king could steal their work. He looked at the wolf. The animal stared back at him. In those red eyes, Jake saw something: pain, loss. This creature had watched its creators die. Had been taken prisoner, used as a weapon against the very people who gave it life. "We need to free it," Jake said suddenly. Everyone looked at him. "The wolf is not a weapon," Jake continued. "It's intelligent. It saved my life when it didn't have to. It deserves better than being locked in a cage." "Jake, we don't know if it's safe," Captain Hayes said carefully. "Those modifications make it dangerous. It's only dangerous to our enemies. It had every chance to hurt me when we were alone on my ship. It didn't. It protected me instead." Dr. Harris looked thoughtful. He has a point. The wolf's behavior suggests high-level reasoning. It understood that Jake was trying to help. It responded appropriately. "This is highly irregular," Captain Hayes said, but Jake could tell she was considering it. "King Vexthor treated it like an object," Jake argued. "Let's not make the same mistake. This is a living being with thoughts and feelings. It deserves a choice." Captain Hayes was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. "All right," but slowly. "We open the containment unit here in the medical bay. Full security outside. If the wolf shows any sign of aggression, we lock it back up. Agreed?" "Agreed," Jake said. They cleared everyone except Jake, Captain Hayes, Dr. Harris, and 2 armed guards. The guards stood by the door, weapons ready but pointed down. Not threatening, Jake approached the containment unit. He placed his hand on the transparent wall. The wolf came closer, put its nose against the wall where Jake's hand was. Almost like it was touching him back. "I'm going to open this," Jake said softly. "You're free to go wherever you want, but I hope you'll trust me a little longer, until we figure out what to do." He triggered the release mechanism. The containment unit hummed. Then the transparent walls retracted slowly. For the first time in months, the wolf was free. It stepped out carefully, tested the ground with its paws. Its white fur seemed to glow under the medical bay lights. The animal was beautiful, powerful, but not threatening. The wolf looked around the room, studied each person carefully. Then it walked directly to Jake, sat down in front of him, waited. Jake slowly reached out his hand. "Let the wolf smell it." After a moment, the animal leaned forward and pressed its head against Jake's palm, accepting the touch. Trusting him, Dr. Harris smiled. "I think you just made a friend." "We need to give it a name," Jake said. "The researchers must have called it something." Dr. Harris checked his files. According to the records from Research Station 12, they called her Luna. Female, 3 years old. Bred and raised at the station. Luna, Jake repeated. The wolf Luna looked at him when he said her name. That fits. Captain Hayes watched the interaction carefully. This is going to complicate things. We need to bring you and Luna to a neutral station. The Galactic Council will want to hear your testimony against King Vexthor. Having a modified wolf with you will raise questions. Let them ask questions, Jake said. Luna is part of the story. She's evidence of what that king did to Research Station 12. Agreed. But we need to be prepared. King Vexthor has power and influence. He'll deny everything, claim we're making false accusations. We have the virus. We have my recording. We have Luna. That's pretty strong evidence. It is. But kings don't go down easy. This is going to get ugly. Jake looked at Luna. The wolf looked back at him with those intelligent red eyes. She had survived the head of the Galactic Council was a being called Elder Mora. She was ancient, from a species that lived for thousands of years. Her skin looked like old tree bark and her eyes held deep wisdom. She struck her staff against the floor 3 times. The sound echoed through the chamber. Everyone fell silent. This council has been called to hear serious charges against King Vexthor of the Andromedan Empire, Elder Mora said. Her voice was strong despite her age. The charges include attempted mass murder, use of biological weapons, and the destruction of a human research colony. King Vexthor rose from his seat. His silver scales gleamed under the lights. These charges are absurd. This human is clearly unstable. He makes wild accusations to cover his own crimes. I have evidence, Jake said. He stood in the center of the chamber with Luna beside him. Captain Hayes stood behind him with her officers. Then present it, Elder Mora commanded. Jake pulled out his datapad. He played the recording he had made on his ship. His voice filled the chamber, explaining everything. The job offer, the sick wolf story, the discovery of the biological weapon. His whole confession played for everyone to hear. When it finished, the council chamber was silent. Representatives whispered to each other. King Vexthor's face was unreadable. A recording proves nothing, the king said. He could have made that up. Created false evidence to frame me. Captain Hayes stepped forward. Not just a recording, Your Majesty. We have the biological weapon itself. Our scientists have analyzed it. The pathogen was specifically engineered to target human DNA. It was designed to kill. I know nothing about any weapon, King Vexthor insisted. Then explain how it ended up on my ship, Jake said. Your own staff loaded the containment unit. Your diplomat Chirix arranged everything. Perhaps my staff was deceived. Perhaps someone planted the weapon without my knowledge. Jake felt his anger rising. The king was going to lie his way out of this. Blame others. Deny everything. Luna suddenly moved forward. She walked to the center of the chamber and sat down. Every eye in the room turned to her. The white wolf with red eyes. She looked at King Vexthor directly. Then she began to howl. The sound was unlike anything Jake had heard before. It started low and rose higher. But it was not just sound. It was something else. A frequency that bypassed the ears and went straight to the brain. Images appeared in Jake's mind. Not his memories. Someone else's memories. Luna's memories. He saw a research station. Scientists working with animals. Creating something new. Something better. Wolves that could think. That could understand. That could survive anywhere. The scientists loved their creations. Treated them like children. Then ships appeared in the sky. Andromedan warships. They opened fire without warning. Buildings exploded. People ran screaming. The scientists tried to protect the wolves, but there were too many soldiers. Jake saw King Vexthor himself walking through the burning station, examining the wolves, choosing Luna, killing the others, taking her away while the station burned behind them. The images faded. Luna stopped howling. Jake looked around the chamber. Every being there had seen the same visions. Luna had shared her memories with all of them, showed them the truth. King Vexthor's face had gone pale. His silver scales seemed dull now. That creature is dangerous. Using mind control. It should be destroyed. That's not mind control, Dr. Harris said from where he stood with the other witnesses. It's communication. The neural implants allow her to share memories directly. She's showing us what happened. Elder Mora struck her staff again. I have seen the wolf's memories. They are clear, undeniable. King Vexthor, You ordered the attack on Research Station 12. You took this animal and used her in your scheme to destroy New Portland Colony. You believe an animal over a king? Vexthor snarled. I believe the truth, Elder Mora replied calmly. And the truth has been shown to us all. Other council members began speaking, calling for justice, demanding action. The evidence was too strong now. The recording, the weapon, Luna's memories. Everything pointed to King Vexthor's guilt. The king realized he was losing. His composure cracked. So what if I destroyed that research station? They were creating weapons. Dangerous creatures. I was protecting the galaxy. They were creating companions, Jake said. Intelligent animals that could help people survive on harsh worlds. You saw them as threats because you're afraid of anything you can't control. I fear nothing, the king hissed. You fear humans, Captain Hayes said. We're expanding too quickly, taking planets you want. So you decided to wipe out a colony, frame us as careless with bioweapons, turn other species against us. King Vexthor said nothing, but his silence was admission enough. Elder Mora stood. The council has heard enough. King Vexthor, you are found guilty of war crimes. You will be stripped of your title. Your territories will be placed under council supervision. You will be imprisoned until a final sentence can be determined. Guards moved forward. Andromedan representatives tried to protest, but other council members overruled them. The evidence was too clear, too damning. As King Vexthor was led away, he looked at Jake one last time. You have made a powerful enemy, mechanic. I have allies. This is not over. Yes, it is, Jake said quietly. You lost. The king was taken from the chamber. His reign was over. Justice had been served. The council session continued for hours. Representatives discussed what to do about the Andromedan Empire, how to prevent future attacks, how to protect human colonies. It was important work, but Jake was exhausted. Elder Mora finally dismissed everyone. She approached Jake personally. You have done a great service. Prevented a terrible tragedy. The council is grateful. I just tried to do the right thing, Jake said. That is exactly why you succeeded. Elder Mora looked at Luna. What will you do with this wolf? She is a unique being. Many will want to study her. Jake felt Luna press against his leg. He put his hand on her head protectively. She stays with me, if she wants to. She's free to choose. Luna looked up at him with those red eyes. Then she licked his hand. Her choice was clear. Elder Mora smiled. Very well. The council grants her protected status as a sentient being. She has the same rights as any other intelligent species. Anyone who tries to harm her will answer to us. Thank you, Jake said. The next few days were chaos. News crews wanted interviews. Diplomats wanted statements. Jake did his duty, told his story over and over, but he was relieved when it was finally done. Captain Hayes found him in the station's observation deck. He was watching the stars with Luna beside him. The wolf seemed to enjoy the view. You're famous now, Captain Hayes said. The mechanic who stopped a war. I didn't do it alone, Jake replied. You saved my life. Luna showed everyone the truth. It was a team effort. Still, you started it. You refused to give up even when everything looked hopeless. She paused. The Earth Defense Forces could use someone like you. The offer still stands. Jake shook his head. I'm not a soldier. I'm just a mechanic. I want to go home to Kepler 9, back to my workshop, with a telepathic wolf. With my friend, Jake corrected. Captain Hayes smiled. Fair enough. But if you ever change your mind, let me know. She handed him a data chip. Your payment. The council decided to honor King Vexthor's original offer. 150,000 credits, plus a reward for preventing the attack. 500,000 total. Jake stared at the chip. That was more money than he had imagined. Life-changing money. What will you do with it? Captain Hayes asked. First, I'm going to repair my ship properly. Then I'm going to expand my workshop. Maybe hire some help. Danny always said I work too hard. Sounds like a good plan. What about Luna? Jake looked at the wolf. She comes with me. We're partners now. They returned to Kepler 9 a week later. The Ranger's Hope had been repaired by the Horizon's crew. It flew better than it had in years. Jake landed in his familiar docking bay and felt relief wash over him. Home. Danny was waiting in the bay. He ran forward and grabbed Jake in a tight hug. You crazy fool. I thought you were dead. Then I see you on every news channel in the galaxy. Told you I'd be careful, Jake said with a grin. Careful? You took on a king and won. Danny noticed Luna. And you brought home a wolf, a famous telepathic wolf. Luna. She saved my life. Danny knelt down and held out his hand. Luna sniffed it carefully. Then she licked his palm, accepting him. Well then, she's welcome in my bar any time, Danny said. First drink is on the house. Wait, do wolves drink? Water's fine for her, Jake laughed. That night, Danny threw a party. The whole station came. Traders, miners, engineers. Everyone wanted to meet Jake and hear his story. But more than that, they wanted to celebrate. One of their own had faced down a tyrant and won. Jake kept the story short. He was never good at public speaking, but he did say one thing that felt important. I almost made a terrible mistake. I trusted the wrong person because I wanted money. Because I was greedy, Danny warned me. I should have listened. He looked at his friend. Always trust your instincts. Question authority. And stand up for what's right even when it seems impossible. The crowd cheered. Drinks flowed. Music played. Luna sat beside Jake's chair enjoying the attention. People kept bringing her treats, petting her soft white fur. She seemed happy. As the party wound down, Jake retreated to a